are getting ready for our C8 walk around at 2 o'clock. The car is in motion right now, pulling into the spot between the stage and the grandstand. If you want to take your pictures and get close now, that's fine, but as the walk around starts, we respectfully ask that you allow space for those that are in the grandstand to be able to see. Tadge might be teasing you there a little bit. We'll have this coming up in just a minute, folks. And without further ado, we're going to hand the microphone over to Tadge Juechter, the chief engineer with Corvette, and he's going to talk all about this car. He's been a rock star this weekend, Tadge. It's been a fun time, right?
It's been a great time, and thanks for everybody coming out. We are not the rock stars. The car is a rock star. You can tell just by the magnetism, the power of this car. Nobody's even driven it yet, but the power, the design, and what everybody sees in the car seems to be having an incredible influence really all around the world. And I want to make sure everybody gets a good view of this. And we realized some years ago that in order to increase the performance envelope, we needed more weight on the back axle. We tried to do that in a lot of different ways while keeping the engine in the front. Last generation had a carbon fiber hood. You know, that's how serious we were about taking weight off the front and a higher percentage on the back. But there really wasn't a way to move the needle a lot. And with engines getting as powerful as they are today, we're running out of ability to get that power to the ground. So we really needed to make a big difference, a big change, and that meant you got to move the engine from the front of the engine compartment to behind the engine compartment. But you can stick an engine behind the passenger compartment and have a lousy car. One thing that we do is you put the engine back here, you get the mass, so you're going to have a lot of traction back here. But that's not the only thing a car does. It's not a dragster, even though it does go 0 to 60 very quickly. It wants to do a lot of things well. And so we want it to be a very capable track car with very benign handling. Historically, people with a very rear bias car have struggled to make the car very easy to handle at the limit, especially in transients. You don't want the back end to feel like it's going to come around on you. Folks have been trying to do that for years, trying to find that formula to get the car to be very benign, even though you have all that traction. Race cars do it, they have amazing aero, keep the car planted. It's much more difficult for a street car, and so that was part of the formula we had to figure out. But in addition to all that handling stuff, we also had to figure out how do we make the car fit into people's lives the way the current Corvettes do. And if we come to events like this, and we support many events around the country, we talk to customers, we see how they use their cars. They use their cars in a lot of different ways. Some people, it's their only car they have. It's their daily driver. They use it to commute from work. They go places on the weekend. Other people, it's a second or third car, and maybe they use it for touring. They go out with club events, and they want to travel long distances, and they want to bring a lot of stuff with them. The current car, the last few generations of cars have done a really good job of balancing all that performance, as well as all that daily livability, as well as the grand touring, long distance travel. Kind of a combination for everything. So that's the formula we've been working on. We've been working on it for many, many years, even all the way back to the 6th generation. We've been thinking about it, but we never perfected the formula until now. And we think we finally have all of that balanced out in a package that you can actually afford. And that was part of the magic of Corvette. How do you get all that stuff, all the great attributes of the car, and have it affordable? So to help me today, we have a couple of our team members. The first is Harlan Charles. Many of you know Harlan. He's our program marketing manager. Obviously been on Corvette since 2001, so very well known in the Corvette community. He's got his ear to the ground more so than any other person on the team. Attends more Corvette events, speaks to more people, helps more customers in more different ways. Tons of people know Harlan. And he's the guy who actually creates a lot of the definition of the car. So what is the content? What are the features? What are customers asking for? How can we make improvements to the car that make it even more satisfactory to own? So he's going to talk a little bit about those features. I also have with me Joshua Holder. Josh is right here. Josh is our program engineering manager. He's been on the team for quite a while too. Almost since the day he was born, he was on a mission to get to Corvette and work on this product. We'll probably take that a little more, talk about that a little more when he gets up here. But he's a huge asset to the team. program engineering managers like an assistant chief engineer. I was kind of that job for Dave Hill on the 5th and 6th generation car. Josh is doing that for this car. So I'll let him talk a little bit more about the engineering as well. But let's start with some of the features and the content. Harlan.
Hey, thanks. One of the things we really try to do with this car, like Tadge said, is make it a new type of sports car. And we had a chart that we used for a lot of years, and we talked about the things that people love about the Corvette. It calls it the small block V8, that's the heart of the Corvette. The performance, the power-weight ratio, the Corvette equity and design. And we thought if we could add the mid-engine supercar attributes to the car, all the engineering benefits, the visibility, the quicker front steering, the lighter steering, the fact that you're at the center of gravity of the car, as well as the great visibility. We thought we had this chart, we thought we said we'd have a home run, Grand Slam home run. And I gotta tell you, talking to everybody today, I've been talking to a lot of people today, and you guys have been giving that right back to me. You guys hit it out of the park, home run, so I really appreciate that feedback, getting that back. And the other thing we heard from people, we're gonna do this mid-engine car. We don't want it to cost $250,000, and we want to have enough room and storage to go on our trips and go to places like Corvettes at Carlisle. And that's the great thing about coming to Corvettes at Carlisle. You guys come to us, and this car is every bit a part of your input as well to make it great. And then the pricing, we have announced all the pricing. If you come to our tent, we have all the pricing and options. Again, you can get a Corvette for $59,995. We have one on display, one LT that's pretty close to that. And then some people are saying, well, how did you guys do it so cheap? But if you look at our rolling chassis, look at the materials in this car, look at the materials in the interior, you can see that we did not cut corners. So I would ask you go to our friends in Italy and Germany and ask them why the hell is their car so damn expensive?
Yeah. So I want to give people a little context of where we are. So in the introduction, you heard we have 14 cars here. That doesn't mean we have 14 cars already offline, really ready to sell to people. All the cars you're seeing here have experimental VINs on them, so the vehicle identification number ends in EX, that stands for experimental. None of these cars will ever go out to the public. We're just starting to build our very first cars that will eventually be sold to the public, but they're actually our internally used cars, what we call our captured test fleet. We'll be testing those throughout the rest of the summer and fall to do our last and final tuning and inspection of the cars to make sure they're perfect. So we really won't start production until the very end of the year. I don't want you to think because we have 14 cars here, Bowling Green's cranked up, it's actually still making the 7th generation car. So I wanted to give you a little bit of context. Harlan mentioned the audio system. We didn't talk about that a lot yesterday, but it has 14 speakers. And a funny story is it's the loudest system Bose has ever done. And we did an audio demonstration, and they said, we limited the volume because we didn't think you would want it to play too loud. And we said, oh, is it distorting? No, it's not distorting, it's just too loud. And we said, what do you mean there's a knob there? If you don't like it that loud, you just turn it down. We said, crank it up. And so we thought that's what the customers would like. We said, play it as loud, if it's not distorting, let them choose how loud they want to play it. And so it's the loudest system Bose has ever done. So even though the car is actually relatively quiet by Corvette standards, the audio system will kick some butt. So I want to let Josh talk a little bit about some of the engineering challenges behind this car, because he's been very integral into solving most of those challenging technical problems that I talked about earlier. So, Josh.
Thanks, Tadge. Tadge mentioned earlier that this is my dream job, to be able to work with this talented team on this car. I was in grade school when I knew that I wanted to be an engineer on Corvette, and to get to do this car now, this is historic. This car will be forever remembered as the game changer, the day that the Corvette disrupted the sports car world. And what we've done here, it creates an incredible driving experience. We've talked about the layout a little bit. The driver and passenger are about 16.5 inches further forward. The the driver's feet is literally on the front tire. When you're driving the car, you have this command view of the road. Much like you're in a fighter jet. You have an unobstructed view in front of you. You're not looking over a long hood like we're all used to in a Corvette. You can see exactly where the car is. The center of gravity is literally right underneath your seat. So as you're turning in, the car is rotating around you. You're not chasing the car around the corner. And the way that this new Stingray can plant power to the ground is something that no Corvette owner has ever experienced. We're all used to big, powerful cars, and we have to be very judicious with the right pedal, especially in a turn. This car can plant all of that torque to the ground, and the outcome is going to be absolutely outstanding if you get a chance to drive it. Tadge talked a little bit when he was mentioning the audio system about how quiet the car is. So a side benefit of moving the driver and passenger forward is that they're now further away from the noisy, big, wide rear tire. We also put a lot of thought into the acoustic treatment behind the driver and passenger. There's a lot of really great engine sounds like exhaust and induction that you want to hear. There's also some noises you don't want to hear, valve train, injectors. And to keep that quiet, not only did that job, but resulted in a very quiet, comfortable cabin. Sure, you can hear the exhaust when you want to hear it, but you can have a conversation going on the highway, you can talk on your phone on Bluetooth, people on the other end of the line can actually understand what you're saying. It's something that not a lot of us are used to driving a Corvette. The way this car behaves at the limit. So Tadge mentioned before about the challenge of laying out this architecture for all-out performance. In a front-engine car, especially a powerful front-engine car, as you start to lose rear traction, not only are you losing traction at the rear, but now you're shifting a lot of weight to the front of the car. Oftentimes in a turn, you're going to have a steering wheel input, and as you shift weight to the front of the car, you just gave that input more authority. So the car will want to rotate quicker, a little snappier, a little tougher to catch. This car, with some of us have got to push around a little bit, when you're driving at the limit and beyond, and you start to push the car too far, you don't upset the weight balance. The weight stays on the rear of the car, even if the rear is spinning, you can slide the car around, drift it. It's certainly not the fastest way around the track, but it's a lot of fun. The car we're looking at here is a Z51. So with Z51, you get a whole bunch of hardware. I'll probably forget something, but you get the front splitter, the rear spoiler, the bigger J55 brakes. You get a performance rear axle ratio, electronic limited slip differential, auxiliary cooler, and you get all of that track modified performance hardware for the market price of $5,000. The other thing that, if you come to the tent, you're going to see a whole bunch of cool hardware that you can't see just looking at the outside of the car. One thing we really haven't mentioned is that for the first time in 67 years on Corvette, we have 4-corner coil springs. So the transverse composite springs that have been around for a while are gone in this car. There's a number of reasons for doing that. One of them was to lower the powertrain. The crankshaft center line is actually about an inch lower in this car. But not only do we want to keep the mass rearward, we want to keep it as low as possible. And those coil-over springs, if you look at the rolling chassis and the tent, you'll see that they're pointed right at the tire contact patch. For optimal chassis performance, we've also talked about how the structure is about 10% stiffer. Stiffer structure does not mean harsher ride. In fact, it's just the opposite. The stiffer structure lets those optimized suspension components do their job. You're going to be blown away by a car that has this much grip, this much capability, with this soft of a ride, this quiet of an interior. It's an awesome machine.
So Josh mentioned this is a Z51 car. This is the first time we've done a Stingray with Z51 that actually has full vehicle downforce. Usually we were able to accomplish that on the up-level cars, the 06, the R1, but it required kind of extreme aerodynamic measures, big giant carbon splitters that get a lot of downforce on the front end and then a big wing on the back. This is the first time we've been able to achieve downforce on a car with this kind of minimalistic aero. And one of the reasons for that is the proportions and the architecture. When you move the windshield this far forward, you can see that the top of the windshield is almost right over the front axle. And as the air flows over the car, it creates high pressure at the base of the windshield. And that high pressure, when it runs into the windshield, actually creates force that pushes down. Having that downward force very close to the front axle makes it easier to generate downforce on the front end. It's very, very hard to generate front downforce on a road car, never mind a car with an engine in the front with the windshield way back here. So we took advantage of that to be more aggressive aerodynamically, and that's just one reason the car looks the way it does. I mentioned the challenge of how do you make a car that has decent luggage room with the engine in the back. Well, most mid-engine cars have what they call a frunk, so a front trunk, and we do too. It was sized around a standard rollerboard aircraft, rolling carrier. It's very deep, it accommodates quite a bit, and in most mid-engine cars, that's all you get. We knew we had to have the challenge of more luggage room, and since we've had a removable top since 1984, since the fourth generation, we were going to keep that, which is very unusual in mid-engine configuration, and you had to have a place to put that in the car. So if you go someplace, you want to take the top off, you don't want to leave it by the side of the road, or leave it in your garage, you want to be able to take it with you. So we knew we had to have a luggage compartment size to receive this top. And so that's why we created the luggage in the back of the car. It's big enough for the top, it's big enough for 2 golf bags. It's very accommodating. A lot of us have driven these cars now thousands of miles and taken all of our stuff with us. All the same stuff that we used to take in the prior generations, we take in this car too. And that was kind of a secret. We did our camouflage, for the last couple of years you've seen pictures of camouflage cars. One of the rules we had was absolutely never open the hatch, never open the back end. We carried car covers wherever we were, and you had to put the car cover somewhere when you took it off. It always went in the front, fit in there fine, but the back was a secret. I wanted everybody to think that back is just engine and exhaust, transaxle, all that stuff back there, because that's what most mid-engine cars are. And so we wanted people to think that's what we were doing, and we wanted a surprise that this is a new kind of mid-engine car. So the fact that you have a frunk means you can't really put a very effective radiator right on the center line of the car. You want to use all that space for luggage. So we had to put very large heat exchangers outboard on both sides, supplemented by cooling in the back. You see the very large rear quarter openings. We knew we had a special challenge around evacuating hot air out of the engine compartment. When the engine is in the front, you have the air coming out of those heat exchangers, which is still way cooler than exhaust manifolds. And that air would push over the engine and exit out through the wheel openings onto the car, out through the gills that we put on the fender. So it's kind of a natural setup that way. When you put an occupant compartment in front of the engine compartment, you have a big challenge. You have to get that hot air out of there. And so if you take a peek in here, you'll see there's heat exchangers on the C51 car, and then there's powered fans on both sides. That was part of the formula for getting a car that had all these attributes. The powered fans actually push air over the engine, but it has to escape somehow. And so if you look at the amount of venting on the car, it's way more than we've ever done. We have, in fact, this car, just from driving it from the tent over here, there's hot air coming out of these vents. So very large vents down the side, and then we decided to add more venting by actually cantilevering the backlight on here in the hatch. So there's a mail slot that lets hot air, which rises naturally, come up across the engine from underneath the car and exit the car right here. So when the fans are powered on, that blows air up and rearward, and when you're moving fast through the air, you get a ram air effect that helps push air through the engine compartment, and then you'll see very large vents on the back of the car and all the way across the center. The air goes out of the engine compartment, across the muffler, and out the back end of the car. Now the reason for explaining all this is everybody looks at this car and thinks, oh my God, it's beautiful, it's styled, it's very powerful looking. But every single element on the car is extremely functional, and it had to be there. So that's what we started with, is what's the functional, what do we have to have on the car, what's underneath the skin, and then we had to figure out a way to make that totally integrated and beautiful on the outside. So that is why this car looks the way it does.